My name is Ms. Doyle and I am currently a student teacher at Decker Prairie Elementary. And today I'm going to be teaching a lesson over geometry, and which consists of polygons and non-polygons. So that's what we're really going to get into today. Okay, and just the attributes and traits of what classifies a polygon and a shape to a polygon or a non-polygon. So I am going to get started, and I would just begin by doing a callback, because the kids would be working at their desk and I would say, class, class, and they would repeat, yes, yes. I would let them know, okay, at this time I would like you to put everything away in your desk. Okay, if you guys have work that you're still working on, it's unfinished, go ahead and just put that in your yellow folder, and we can continue working on that later. Okay, and I am just, so the class knows, once I give that call back, they're stopping what they're doing, dropping, and they will continue with what I've asked. And after that is, and they've already put everything away, their desk is clear, I would just kind of pay close attention to see who finished, not so much first, but if the whole table has done everything I've asked. Okay, they're sitting quietly at their desk waiting for their next instruction. And the table who has done this and promptly exactly what I'm asked, I will let them know, okay, I like the way table 4 cleaned up nicely and quickly. And they did just exactly as I asked. Please come join me on the carpet at your spots. Then usually the whole class will start, oh, that's my turn. I need to really put my things away and finish. So this just kind of helps students stay on track. You know, when the teacher praises one table, everyone wants to get praised. So I would do that, call on one table, and then I would begin singing the song, let them finish up a little bit more, maybe 10 more seconds, and start singing the song. It's time to come to the carpet. It's time, don't wait. And they know when I start singing that song, everybody gets up, pushes in their chair, and meets me on the carpet quietly, sitting crisscross applesauce, and their eyes are on me, ready to learn. So I would begin by introducing the lesson, just kind of letting the class know, hey guys, today we're going to talk about geometry. We're going to learn what the difference is between a polygon and a non-polygon, and what shape would it be classified under, okay? So I would begin by asking the class, who can tell me what they know about polygons? Does that word sound familiar to you? It's okay if it doesn't, because it's probably not. But some of them we do have some GT students in our class, and I'm sure they would know what a polygon is. And so they would throw out answers such as, ooh, it has to do with numbers. Okay, so I would call on that student, they would tell me that, and I would let them know, okay, if you agree with them, do your nonverbal cue. So this is their nonverbal cue for agreeing with them, for agreeing with the student that shares the answer. Okay, then I would call on another student. They would give me their answer. Okay, then I would call maybe on a third student. They would tell me, well, it has to do with shapes. And I would say, guys, you are all correct. Okay, and I would say, let's go ahead and give them some marshmallow claps. So this is marshmallow claps, and this is just a silent way of praising their students, and they really, truly love this. And so we would go ahead and I would let them know that, you know what, you guys are all correct. We are going to be talking about shapes. So, but before we get into shapes, we're going to do a little number talk, okay? And when I would get started, I would just, I wouldn't have this written first, because then once I have this written, they're going to want to start solving it when I'm talking and look behind me and just kind of see what's going on. So for this time, I already have it pre-written. So I would just write 121 plus 121. And the kids know they're going to start solving this in their head. Okay, so they're going to start solving this in their head, and I would let them know again, okay, once you have an answer to this problem, go ahead and give me a soft thumbs up on your chest, okay? And again, everybody's gonna finish at different times. And I'll give them about a minute to solve this. Then I would call on, for instance, Kindlin. I'd call on Kindlin. She would give me the number 243. Okay? I would write that. Then I would say, okay, class, if you agree, give the sign. Sometimes I don't have to do this and they're giving their nonverbal cue, and sometimes I will. But we'll make sure to say, okay, remember, we're being respectful. We're waiting till I call on you to give me the answer. I'd call on somebody else, for instance, Graham. I would say, okay, Graham, what did you come up with? He would tell me 242. Then I would say, okay, does anyone else have a different answer? Okay, and if someone has a different answer, I would go ahead and write that underneath. If they didn't, I would say, okay, let's go ahead and work this out. But before we do, let's talk about place value, because that's something that they know, we've learned and talked about. We know that as a class we would say, we know that this number and this number is in what place value, and they're going to tell me it's in the ones place value, okay? The 2 is in which place value? They're going to say the tens, and the 1 is in the hundreds, okay? So that would be a nice step just to clarify, refresh their brain, because it's been maybe a couple of days since we've talked about it, and they know that the 1 is in the ones, tens, and the hundreds. So it kind of starts right to left, okay? And I would call on, let's say, Kinsey. Okay, I'm gonna say, Kinsey, I noticed that your hand was up and you agreed with the answer 242. Can you explain to the class how we got that answer? Let's say she began with, I added 1 plus 1. Okay, so I did 1 plus 1 equals 2. Then she said, well, I know 2 plus 2 equals 4. Okay, then I would kind of stop her. And I would say, well, do we start at, first I would ask her, which place value do we start at? That would be good, okay? Just to make sure she's on the same page. She would say, we know we always start with the ones, then we move to the tens and the hundreds, okay? So I know that she's on track. Then again, I would say, okay, next we move to our hundreds. So then she would tell me, I know 1 plus 1 equals 2. So now, if I notice that she was calling it 1 plus 1, which is fine because that's in the ones place, but if she was saying 2 plus 2, I would stop her and say, okay, now is that a 2 or is that 2 tenths? Or another way to say that is 20. So then I would repeat it and say, okay, so we know 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 20 plus 20, and even though she's told me this is how she's written it, or how she thought about it, I would rewrite it. I would rewrite it. And I would say, I know that 1 plus 1 equals 2, 20 plus 20 equals 40, okay? Because if we let them go on with saying 2 plus 2, that just kind of gets it mixed up in their head. So as a teacher, I need to be very clear that they're counting this not as a 2 because it's not in the ones place, and they are acknowledging that it is in the tens place, which makes it 20, okay? Then we would move to the hundreds place, and again, as a class, we would say, okay, now is this 1 plus 1? No, it is 100 plus 100 equals 200, and all together, that would be 242, okay? So now that I broke this down, and then I would circle the problem, by this time, my student that got that answer just kind of knows, oh, yes, I knew that, I meant to say that, which is perfectly fine, that's great, okay? So it's nice to start off with a little bit of number talk and just kind of make sure to readjust their little brains and and talk about, okay, this is in the ones place, this is in the tens place, and the hundreds, and we would not say 2 plus 2. Even though sometimes I have that mistake and say, okay, I know 2 plus 2 is 4 and write it that way, but in actual reality, it's 200 plus 40 plus 2, which comes together to 242. So once we have completed this number talk, I would go back and let the students know, okay, now that we've done our number talk, I'm going to, before we get into geometry, I want to talk about polygons and non-polygons. So I notice one of my friends said shapes. Who can give us some shapes? Who can tell me some 2D shapes you learned last year in first grade? So I'd have students call out triangles, quadrilaterals, hexagon, just all different shapes. I'd call on a couple students. And the ones that didn't have a chance to share, I would give them about a minute to turn and let them know, okay guys, please turn, share with your PB&J partner, let them know some shapes that you're thinking about. I would give them a second to talk about it and just kind of let them have the chance. Even though I didn't call on them, they still get the chance to talk about it. So I would let them do that. I would call on a student or two and to share, and I would let them know I love their answers. And before we begin learning about polygons and non-polygons, I want to introduce the book, The Greedy Triangle. So I would begin by introducing the book, The Greedy Triangle. Ask the kids, have you ever, who's ever read this book? Okay, and just kind of emphasize, oh my God, it's my favorite book. I love it. It is amazing. This is so awesome. I can't wait to share it with you guys. Okay, so I begin by introducing the book, The Greedy Triangle, written by Marilyn Burns. Okay, The Greedy Triangle. Let's start. Once there was a triangle that was, as most triangles are, always busy. The triangle spent its time holding up roofs, supporting bridges, making music in a symphony orchestra, catching the wind for sailboats, being slices of pie and halves of sandwiches, and much, much more. I would point out there is a couple how many triangles do you notice on this page, class? I would ask them that. Okay, give them, call on a student to answer, then I'd move on. The triangle's favorite thing, however, was to slip into places when people put their hands on their hips. That way, I always hear the latest news, it said, which I can tell my friends. The triangle's friends liked hearing the news. So I would have the students go ahead and place their hand on their hip like this, making a triangle, which would be pretty awesome. I know that we'd love doing that. That's pretty fun. One day, the triangle began to feel dissatisfied. I'm tired of doing the same old things, it grumbled. There must be more to life. So the triangle went to see the local shapeshifter. How may I help you? The shapeshifter asked the triangle. I think if I had just one more side and one more angle, said the triangle, which now we don't call it angle. I would let the class know, guys, we wouldn't call it angle, we call it vertice, okay? My life would be more interesting. That's easy to do, said the shapeshifter. Poof! The shapeshifter turned the triangle into a quadrilateral. Life changed in a wonderful way. The quadrilateral was happy with all the new things it could do. The quadrilateral could be a baseball diamond, or first, second, or third base. It could take a position on a checkerboard or a chessboard. It could be a television screen, a computer screen, or a movie screen. It could frame windows or frame pictures, or much, much more. The quadrilateral's favorite thing, however, was to be the pages of a book. I learned so many interesting stories that way, it said, which I can tell my friends. The quadrilateral's friends liked hearing all the stories. But one day the quadrilateral began to feel dissatisfied. I'm tired of doing the same old things, it grumbled. There must be more to life. So the quadrilateral went back to the shapeshifter. How may I help you now? The shapeshifter asked the quadrilateral, I think if I had just one more side and one more vertice, said the quadrilateral, my whole life would be more interesting. That's easy to do, said the shapeshifter. Poof! The shapeshifter turned the quadrilateral into a pentagon. I would point out that this is the new pentagon, which I know a lot of my students, they would know. Life changed in a wonderful way. The pentagon was happy with all the new things it could do. On a baseball diamond, the pentagon could be home plate. It could be a section on a soccer ball, or appear inside whenever someone drew a 5-point star. The pentagon's favorite thing, however, was to be the headquarters on the United States military near Washington, D.C. I hear all the top secrets that way. It's too bad I can't tell them to my friends. The Pentagon's friends couldn't help feeling left out. After a while, time seemed to pass slowly for the Pentagon, and it became dissatisfied. I'm tired of doing the same old things, it grumbled. There must be more to life. So the Pentagon went back to the shapeshifter. So you're here again, the shapeshifter said to the Pentagon. Now what would you like? I think if I had just one more side and one more vertice, said the Pentagon, my life would be more interesting. That's easy to do, said the shapeshifter. Poof! The shapeshifter turned the pentagon into a hexagon. Life changed again in a wonderful way. The hexagon was happy with all the new things it could do. The hexagon fit in the floor tiles and houses and patios and fancy crackers as parties and picnics. It worked as the socket of certain bolts and the prongs of certain wrenches. The hexagon's favorite thing, however, was to be a cell in a beehive. I love watching the bees as they buzz in and out, it said. The hexagon spent so much time in the beehive, it was too much to talk to its friends. The friends missed the hexagon and couldn't help feeling ignored. Again and again, the shape became restless, dissatisfied, and unhappy with its life. Again and again, it turned to the shapeshifter for more sides and more vertices. The shapeshifter agreed to turn it into one shape after another. A heptagon, an octagon, a nonagon, a decagon, and on and on. Finally, the shape had many, many sides and many, many angles. Its sides were so small that it had trouble keeping its balance. Its friends couldn't tell which side it was on and began to avoid the shape. One day, when the shape was going down a hill, it began to roll. Faster and faster, it went scrunching around corners, crashing into fences and trees, colliding with bicycles and terrifying walkers. At last, the shape came to a stop. It felt tired and dizzy, lonely and sad. Enough, thought the shape. I don't know which side is up. I can't keep my balance. My friends don't want me around. The shape could no longer remember why it had been so unhappy as a triangle. Very carefully, it made its way back to the shapeshifter. Aren't you happy yet? The shapeshifter asked. I want to be a triangle again, said the shape. I'm not surprised, said the shapeshifter. Poof! The shapeshifter turned the shape back into a triangle. The triangle was delighted to have its old shape back again and kept itself very busy. Once again, it held up roofs, supported bridges, made music in a symphony orchestra, caught the wind for sailboats, became slices of pie and halves of sandwiches, and much, much more. I would ask the class, how many triangles do you notice on this page? I would just call on one or two students to kind of share. That's pretty fun. Still, the triangle's favorite thing was to slip into place when people put their hands on their hips. That way, I always hear the latest news, it said, which I can tell my friends. Its friends liked hearing the news and were glad the triangles were back in shape again. The end. And then I would go and just kind of ask the class, okay, what are some shapes that you noticed the book talked about throughout? I would call on maybe about 2 or 3 students and say, yes, I love, they talked about triangles, they talked about circles, they talked about hexagon and pentagons. And then I would turn their attention to the Promethean board, and I would have a couple of slides up and just kind of talk about how shapes are, what classifies a polygon. And I would discuss, okay guys, a polygon is a 2D shape that has all straight edges or all straight sides, and they are closed shapes, okay? And I would just make sure to emphasize that, and I would go through my slides. I would have about 2 or 3 slides, just kind of letting them see different shapes that I would present, and just kind of talk about, okay, I see a triangle here. Do you notice how many vertices? I would go into discussion about, okay, well, vertices are where 2 corners meet, okay? And I would go into and let them know, okay, say for instance, we had a triangle. It's kind of hard to do when I don't have the technology. So for instance, say this shape was on one of the slides, okay? I would let them know, okay, for a polygon, we have, for instance, this triangle, okay? Triangle has 3 vertices, okay? So vertices are when 2 or more points meet. This is a vertice, this is a vertice, and this is a vertice, okay? And then I would say, do you notice something else about this shape? And I would say, okay, Susie, what do you notice about this shape? And I would make sure to point to the board, and I'd do a couple more shapes and just kind of point out the vertices and point out the edges, letting them know that a polygon has all straight sides and 2 or more vertices. So once we finish the slideshow, I would come over to my anchor chart. I already have a couple of shapes already finished, and I would let them know. I would present this shape. I would say, okay, class, would you classify this as a polygon or a non-polygon? Okay, and I would make sure to go over and say, okay, we know that a polygon has vertices and straight sides. Okay, then I would read, polygons are a flat shape made of straight lines forming a closed figure. Then I would go back and say, is this have straight lines? Is this a closed figure? Yes, and I would paste my shape on here. Then I would go to my next shape, which is, and I would just have them call out the shape. Guys, which shape is this? Just kind of helps them, their brain start thinking again of what shape was this? So this is a triangle. How many vertices does this triangle have? And as a class, we would count together. It has 1, 2, 3. And how many straight sides do they have? 1, 2, 3. And I would go ahead and paste that on here. My next shape would be the hexagon. And it has how many sides? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And how many vertices does it have? I would call on a student to come up and, or I would call on a student to share how many vertices they have. Then once that is completed, I would hand out a couple more shapes, and let students come up and just go ahead and let them glue these shapes on to the anchor chart. So that'd be fun for them to do. Then I would reiterate again, okay, now that we know, for instance, I'd give them this tricky one because it's a shape, but it's not something they usually see. And I would tell them, guys, would this be considered a polygon? I would have them give me a soft thumbs up or thumbs down. Then I would explain, this is a polygon because even though the lines go in and they meet, it's still considered a shape in a polygon because it's closed. Is this shape open at all? It's not. It's just because the lines meet and go in does not mean that it's not a polygon. So this is something that I think would be a little different for them to understand, but I think it's good that we would get it out there. Then we would try to count the vertices and the edges on this X. So that would be pretty fun. Then once we have glued all of our shapes on our anchor chart, we would talk about non-polygons, okay? So non-polygons are shapes that are not closed. I would start off with saying that they're not closed, and I would call in a couple of students, what else makes a shape a non-polygon? Who can tell me what they've learned by us discussing over the PowerPoint? What makes a shape a non-polygon? So they would tell me a non-polygon is if a shape doesn't have straight sides, it's not considered a polygon, which is correct. So a non-polygon would be shapes such as this one. And then I just kind of let them come and paste these shapes. And I would say, okay, what about this shape? So they would look at it and they would say, well, is this a polygon? Although it looks like a polygon, look at this opening right here. This opening would make it a non-polygon. So I would just make sure to reiterate, guys, a shape for it to be considered a polygon, it has to be closed shape. All edges are straight, and there are 2 points that meet. So we have 2 points that meet, all edges are straight, but we see an opening. So that would not make it, this would make it a non-polygon. So they would glue that there. What about a circle? Now take a look at this circle, okay? I would just talk to them about it and say, this circle here, there is a straight line in the middle. Do you think this shape is a polygon or a non-polygon? I would ask the class, okay, Susie, why do you think this shape is a polygon? And she would say, well, because there's a straight line right in the middle. Ooh, I love that you said that, Susie. But remember, every line on the shape has to be a straight line. Is every line a circle? Does it have any straight lines? I don't think so. The only straight line in the circle is in the middle. So any circle would not be considered, a circle would not be considered a polygon because it has no straight sides. Okay, this one would not be considered, this shape would not be considered because it's pretty much a rainbow and it has an opening at the end. Okay, so once I have the students come up and glue all of their glue all of their shapes to the anchor chart, I will call on those students to tell me again, okay, give me one statement that makes a shape a polygon. And they would say, for instance, it has all straight sides. And then another one, what makes a shape a polygon? It has all the sides are closed, it's a closed shape, okay? Great, that just kind of like lets me know and checks for understanding that the kids are understanding it. Then I would move on to what makes it a non-polygon, and I would call on a couple students to answer, and if time allowed, I would let them just do another turn around and share. Okay, so before they get back to their seats, I will explain to them, okay, we are going to take out our writing journals, and you're going to turn to a clean sheet of paper. The top half, you're going to write polygons, just like how I have it written. You're gonna write just polygons on the top of your sheet. You're gonna write a line halfway through, and you're gonna write non-polygons, okay? And I want you as a class, as whole class, to come up with your own. I want you to give me 2 or 3 shapes. Come up with your own shapes, guys. Make some really fun shapes. Come up with your own shapes and give me 2 to 3 polygons and 2 to 3 non-polygon shapes, okay? And after you do that, I want you to take out a book and just start reading a little bit, or take out any unfinished work and get started. You can finish that up, okay? Then I would just kind of tell the class, all right, let's do a C-check. Let's do a self-check in 3, 2, 1. The class knows, just kind of fix their bodies, just adjust themselves, because by this time they're getting a little bit squirmy. They would do good for the book, but they would get a little squirmy because this is I would think this is a fun lesson. But you know, at this age, they are squirmy still. So they do C-check, and just to check for understanding when they get back to their seats, because we still have those that are going to ask. So just so everyone is on the same page, I would say, okay, now that I've gone over the steps, who can tell me the first thing that we're doing when we get back to our seat? And I would say, first thing we do, Miss Doyle, is take out our writing journals. Awesome. What is our second step, Graham? You're going to put your name on it. Awesome. Great, because you're always supposed to put your name on your paper. Third step, you're going to write it polygons, make a line halfway through your page, and write non-polygons. Awesome. Then you're going to do what? Write 2 or 3, you're going to draw 2 or 3 shapes for each polygon and 1 for non-polygon. Okay, so now that we have that out the way, and the expectations have gone over twice, I will dismiss the class table by table. They can go back to their seats and begin working on their shapes, just coming up with fun ones. And once I would give them about 5 minutes to do so, and once I've noticed, I'd walk around and I would just start looking to see what kind of shapes they've come up with. This is a non-formal assessment for me to let me know that they've gotten what they've just learned. They've understood the lesson. It comes easy to them. It may not come to some, and that's okay. That's why it's important for me to walk around and talk about it and just kind of observe to see what my students have created. So I would do that, and then after about 5 minutes, I would have them share with someone at their table and just kind of let them do that. But once they have finished, it would be time for specials, and if time did allow, I would let them share with the class. If everyone has gotten their shapes written down and stuff like that, I would call maybe 1 or 2 students to come up and maybe show their picture of what shape they drew, and just kind of ask them again, okay, why would this be considered a polygon? Why is your shape considered a non-polygon? Just kind of go over it just to give a nice little wrap up of what they've learned today, because they've gone back to their chairs, they're talking, they're coming up with new shapes, they're sharing it with their friends, they've learned new shapes, and so forth. So I hope you enjoyed my lesson. See you again soon. Bye.